Welcome to The Man Who Kept Dying. In today's video, I would like to cover the topic of the law of attraction. As I have mentioned in my previous video on enlightenment, the law of attraction is actually a topic that I cover in the novel The Man Who Kept Dying, and that I actually forgot was covered in the novel, and I just rediscovered it was the case as I am currently translating the novel from English to French. The reason I forgot that it was mentioned as part of the story is because I just very briefly covered this topic. So I thought I would start by reading you a very short excerpt from the novel with regards to the law of attraction, which, because I am not a fan of the law of attraction and how oversimplified it is presented in most videos, I've decided in the novel to label it as energy alignment. The excerpt is coming from Askaya, who is Mika's guardian angel, and Askaya is explaining to Mika how energy alignment actually works in all its simplicity. And in this example, I have just described to you the principle of aligning with energy in all its simplicity. What you believe in will happen to you. What you fear will also happen to you. But what you have a resistance to, even subconsciously, will never materialize until you have lifted that resistance. I will not give you the exact context during which this conversation is happening, but it has to do with Mika constantly encountering his evil twin, let's put it that way, and wondering why it was the case. But coming back to the law of attraction and why I do have a bit of a problem with it, I would like, through 3 experiences that have happened to me, demonstrate to you why it is not as simple as some videos would have you believe. And to start with, I discovered the law of attraction in 2019 when I was doing all my research on spiritual aspects and the other side. I discovered videos from Abraham Hicks, and all those videos are centered around the law of attraction. The issue I have with those videos is that very often they will say, become a millionaire in 24 hours, or listen to this video and wealth will come your way, or do this every morning and within a month see how much financial wealth you have in your bank account. And that is my first gripe with the law of attraction, is that very often it circles around money and sometimes also relationships, but very often it is about money and about becoming rich. So when I discovered the law of attraction in 2019, I decided that I would run a little experiment for myself. I do not play the lottery, and I thought, why not? So my experiment was the following one. I would play the lottery for 1 month, every single week, playing the same numbers and seeing how quickly I would attract money to myself. Because according to the videos, all I had to do was to believe in the possibility of attracting money to myself, and that was it. And what better way than just playing the lottery and become a multimillionaire overnight? So I ran that experiment for a month. I didn't win anything. But in the process, I was actually learning quite a few interesting things about my resistances or potential resistances towards money, and whether personal, whether at a family level, but also general and popular beliefs around money. For example, the fact that a lot of people will say, oh yes, I would love to have more money, but they will also say in the same sentence, but money is evil, or money is the root of all evil. So how do you reconcile those 2 opposing forces, those 2 opposing principles? You have to be very clear where you stand in order to manifest things in your life. So if your vision of money is that it's good and it's bad at the same time, it's very unlikely to serve you in just a good way. You will have a bit of good and you will have a bit of bad in it. So that was my first layer of understanding about money. But also I understood more about my family's approach to money, and then my personal approach to money, which in some ways actually can differ or deviate a little bit from my family's principles around that. So all these exercises were quite interesting, and I actually carried the experiment for a couple more months. And the results of the experiment are just plain simple. I lost more money than I won. I didn't spend a ludicrous amount of money. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but say that at maximum I would have spent just a bit more than 100 quid or sterling pounds, and I probably have won between 20 and 30. So I still had lost around maybe 70 to 80 quid, which I appreciate to some can be a lot, to others is just like a drop in the water. That was the amount of money that I was comfortable parting with for the sake of the experiment. But you see, despite applying every day all the principles from all the videos about the law of attraction, I have not won the lottery. Why is that then? Well, I also discovered something else about the law of attraction. It's not as simple as it is stated to be. Let me explain that. There are a lot of personal elements to that as well. For example, in my case, if you believe in numerology, my life path, if I use my date of birth, is a number 8. And my life path, if I use my first name, is number 33. Without going into all the aspects of numerology, I will let you do the research on that front. Basically, I also understood that for me, personally, winning the lottery would not really serve a great purpose, because I'd rather be someone who creates and then through its own labor sees the results of that labor, so to speak. And I get more enjoyment when I can see the results of what I've created and how it's going on. So there's a bit more of a business aspect in me, if you like, or a more creative aspect. And actually, had I won the lottery in 2019, I think it would have gone in the way of writing a novel, of following my dreams, following my purposes, following my passions in life. And perhaps I would have gone a bit too lazy about it. One could also argue that it's just an excuse that I'm making right now because I was a bit gutted that the experiment did not work. Perhaps there is just a tiny little bit of truth in that too. But mainly, I believe that it's because it is my life path to live life a certain way. And also imagine that in your life, if you have decided to experiment some elements, winning the lottery might not be part of those elements, or it might be. It's always difficult to predict. So that's my first problem with the law of attraction. Another thing I see through the law of attraction is that you might adopt a very positive mindset and you might go through a lot of positive sentences and this and that. And life will still unfold the way life unfolds, with some positive events and some less so positive events. And that is the second experience I would like to share with you. It happened earlier this year. I was going on a business trip to the UK. I was traveling from France to the south of England. The first leg of my journey was to go from the place where I'm living to Paris, then Paris to London, and then London to where I needed to be in south of England. My first train was very early on a Sunday morning. I had all my meetings scheduled, everything was planned, everything was booked, hotel, meetings and so on. And on Friday afternoon at 6 p.m, I received a text message from the SNCF, which is the equivalent of National Rail in the UK, which is the equivalent of National Rail in France. And essentially, the text message was to say to me that my train on the Sunday morning had been cancelled due to last-minute strikes. Now, I live in France. Last-minute strikes can happen, but usually they would have a bit of a notice. And it was very uncanny for it to happen that late on a Friday afternoon and to affect a journey that happens on a Sunday. Strikes in France tend to be a lot more disruptive. So I looked at other options, whether I could do some car sharing to get to Paris and get my other trains, but no option was really available. I had to cancel the trip. I was actually quite gutted because everything was scheduled. I managed to reschedule everything for a couple of weeks later, but nonetheless, I had to go through the hassle of getting reimbursed for some of the train tickets, putting the ones or the parts that could not be reimbursed onto the insurance, and all those things. So I was thinking, well, it must be happening for a reason, but nonetheless, it's very irritating that I cannot do my business trip and I have to reschedule everything, and I'm losing a lot of time into paperwork. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and my journey is the exact same one, starting on a Sunday morning quite early. And I'm at the train station, and just before boarding my train, I had what you would call a chance encounter. I met with someone. That person asked if I could look after her bags while she was going to the loo. I said no problem. And when she came back, we had a bit of a chit-chat. And through that conversation, we actually discovered that, well, we had a lot in common, because I had a near-death experience and she had quite a profound out-of-body experience during which she reconnected to a lot of the metaphysical aspects or more spiritual self, and she saw bits of the future, and we could compare notes, so to speak, between our different experiences. So we exchanged contacts, and to this day we are still in touch. And as I boarded my train to Paris, I was smiling from ear to ear, because I thought maybe that is the reason why I had to postpone my trip by a couple of weeks. It was just to meet this person. Of course, I was not the only person affected by the strike, but I can only share what happened or what unfolded from my own perspective. And from my experience, I got to meet someone that I would probably have not met had my journey not been disrupted a couple of weeks before. So that is one thing about the law of attraction. You may think, what is happening? Like, things are not going my way. But actually they do. But you don't necessarily, at a conscious level, realize why. And that's why I always have a problem when videos about the law of attraction say to you, it is very easy. It is not. There are a lot of layers to it, and there are a lot of subconscious elements to it, on top of potential life path, potential life decisions you've made for yourself prior to being in this human form or in this human life. The third experience I'm sharing with you today is another one that got me scratching my neck for quite a while to understand what was happening there. So a bit more than a year ago, I moved back to France from the UK. My wife and I, we decided to purchase a car, and we did it online by using a reputable car importer. We knew that this company was existing in the UK, but was also existing in Europe. We arrived in France, the car was delivered to our place on time, absolutely no problem. The car was spotless clean, no problem whatsoever. Except for one little thing, which was paperwork related. The car was coming from Sweden and was delivered in France, so it was imported, which meant that under the French legislation or under the French rules, the car was on temporary registration plates. And those plates are valid for 3 to 4 months. When the car got delivered to me, the person delivering the car explained, within 7 days you should receive a document, and with that document, basically when you receive it, give us a call and we will arrange for an appointment so that you can get your brand new registration plate affixed onto your car. For some reason, when he pronounced those words, I have an intuition that says to me, it's more likely to take a month than 7 days. And of course, a week passes and I don't receive the document. A month passes and I still don't have the document. At that stage, I call the company to ask where that specific document is. What I also discovered at the time is that this company was actually moving out from the EU market. So they were going through insolvency, so to speak. So I'm dealing with a situation in which I'm about to not be able to drive the car in just a few weeks' time. I'm dealing with a company that is going through insolvency. And there's a missing document and no one knows where the freaking document is. It's not a nice situation, and I was really wondering what was happening there. What was the problem behind all this? I started to pester this company and really be behind their back week in and week out for them to find where that document was so we can sort the issue, and I would not end in a situation in which I cannot drive the car. Alas, we reached a stalemate because we actually got very close to the date at which the car was not being drivable anymore because the temporary registration would have expired. And I managed to strike a deal with that company. And to be fair, they've been very good with me because they purchased the car at the exact value I had bought it from. And under French laws, I was also allowed some entitlement money because the company had not been in a position to fulfill their contractual obligations. So essentially, I recouped the cost of the car plus a little bit of money. And on top of that, they collected the car for me. But I was still carless. And because I liked the car, I decided to go for the exact same car, similar type of specifications, say mileage or age. And I found a similar car, which was on the other side of France, but the car dealership was just 20 minutes away from where my grandmother is living. So I did not hesitate. I put a deposit on the car, jumped on a train, collected the car, got to spend some time with my grandmother, but also my parents who live nearby. So basically, I got to spend time with my family in that process. Then drove the car back home. On top of that, the car I got was of similar specs, yes, but actually had a few more extras or a few more bits added to it, which means that when comes resale time, it will hold its value better and it will probably be more sought after than the one I had initially bought. And the really good news is that it did cost me nothing, because with the extra money I received for the money I was entitled on top of the reimbursement of the car, actually allowed me to pay for the full car without having to fork out more money. So although it all started with a very weird situation and it was very painful to go through that admin process, I was already moving back from the UK to France. I had a lot of paperwork, I had to do my job, lots of things going on. On top of that, I was just really wondering what a lot of crap the law of attraction is, because why am I attracting all these problems to me? But then, that's another thing about the law of attraction, is you cannot place any expectation on the outcome, because you might go through a negative situation, but actually the outcome could be a very positive one. But you can only look at the outcome in hindsight, like say a few weeks or a few months later, and realize that perhaps it served a greater purpose. And in that case, the situation ended up to be a really good one that worked in my favor. But, and I believe this is very important to highlight this one, I have to mention that throughout the whole process, although it was extremely irritating, I always kept a positive attitude and a positive outlook on how things would turn out. So I believe this participated in bringing to me the best possible outcome that I could generate. Whereas if I had like a negative outlook, perhaps things would have been very different. And so, through those 3 stories or experiences that I've shared with you, I just wanted to demonstrate that, yes, the law of attraction is not as simple as it is sometimes laid out to be. First of all, it is multi-layered. Second of all, you don't really know what the outcome is, and you might go through a negative situation without really understanding that there is a positive outcome to come. And sometimes, yes, it also leads to the chance encounter and similar events. But in conclusion about the law of attraction, what I would suggest, if that is something that is of interest to you, is that you replace the law of attraction with the word abundance. Because it is one important thing about who you are, mind, body, and spirit. You are always abundant. Abundance is a God-given right, so to speak. You cannot not be abundant. The important thing is, what do you choose to be abundant of? You can have an abundance of bad luck, or you can have an abundance of good luck. You can have an abundance of lacking, or you can have an abundance of having. But you can have an abundance of having problems. You can also have an abundance of having wealth. And wealth could be good health, could be access to good food, doesn't necessarily always mean money. But you can be financially abundant too. In any case, you are abundant. So it's very important to define your abundance and what you desire for it to be, or what you choose for it to be. And that would be my last point about the law of attraction. You have to really know who you are, and you have to really know what defines you. Because one of the purposes of living a life as a human on this planet is to define who you are as a person. And remember, you're answering that question, who am I? And as soon as you define something about yourself, the universe is very clever. The universe will throw at you many reasons, many events, or many occasions for you to keep or maintain that definition of yourself. To say, okay, you're claiming to be this or that. Well, let's face a situation in which you're going to really demonstrate that you are who you are claiming to be. That's how the universe learns about itself. So yes, one can master the law of attraction as long as one really understands who he or she is and can really stand their ground all the time about that definition of who they are. And I will be honest with you, even though I do understand all that, they still are off days. But as I've said before, sometimes you might have an off day, or you might go through a situation that you don't necessarily understand why it is happening to you the way it is happening. However, a few weeks later, a few months later, you understand that this situation was happening for a reason, and that the reason for this situation was actually to lead you to a better outcome. Although it was still painful, irritating, annoying, whatever word you want to use to define this, when you were going through that situation. And that's it. The rant about the law of attraction is over, at least for my part. I would be very curious to hear your views about the law of attraction. Do you feel you're abundant? Is it working for you? Is it simple for you? Or do you go through some hiccups of some roadblocks? Also, if you've won the lottery, or if you know someone who've won the lottery, just let me know, because I don't know of anyone. And as one colleague of mine in the past once put it, she believed that the lottery was all a scam because she didn't know anyone who had won it. So if you've won it, or if you know someone who's won it, let me know in the comments, because I will let her know that it is possible to win it. I hope you enjoyed this video about the law of attraction, and I wish you a lot of abundance of whatever you choose. And of course, until next time, be conscious, my friends.